Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of Down the Middle. Going to do something a little bit different because, well, there's two reasons why. Uh, Firstly, this podcast is brought to you by our friends at the Leading the Band podcast and by TrophySmack.com. More on both of them here in a moment. But the reason we're doing something a little bit different, well, the reasons. One, oh God, I've been so busy. I'll be honest, I haven't watched any wrestling. I mean, none. Zilch.
Uh,
Nada. So
I watch
busy.
All
I'll
Out,
be
or I
honest, I
think
haven't
it's
watched
All
any
Out.
wrestling. I mean, none. You haven't you watched what?
I think All Out or All In. I forgot what was the second one. I think the second one was All Out.
You haven't you
Can't
watched what?
remember.
Mm. But then the second reason is wow, I'm so much louder than you are. Hang on one second.
Yeah, give me.
And then the second
Let's
reason
see.
is wow, I have a new microphone and it's very good, but while we're sorting this out, how about now? Microphone and it's very good, but while we're sorting this out, how about a new microphone? It's very good. I sound the same, so
Yeah, it's pretty loud, but it's good. For some reason, I sound pretty low.
I sound the same, so yeah, it's pretty loud. Let me see here. No, you're at maximum volume. Let me turn myself down a smidge, maybe. Try this now. Sorry, folks, we'll get with it. All right, throw me a little bit, Hakeem. What I don't want to happen is I don't want them to have to like turn the volume up to hear you, but then I break their eardrums.
Yeah, go go back and forth.
All right,
Yeah,
throw me a little bit, Hakeem.
how
What
I
I don't
sound
want to
now.
happen is I don't want them to have to like turn the volume up to hear you, but then I break their eardrums.
Yeah, go go back and
Okay,
forth.
there we go. That's much better. Okay. Apparently I was just too loud. Anyway, the other reason was I heard on the Jim Cornette experience. Well, I heard two very interesting things, both of which we're going to touch on tonight. But I heard two very interesting things on the Jim Cornette experience, or was it the drive-through? It was one of them. But they played some audio clips of Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez arguing over whether or not it was stupid. So apparently, because again, I'll admit it, I didn't watch any wrestling, trying to get back into a routine, but we keep adding crap for me to do because I'm an idiot. But apparently, Hikaru Shida got the title shot against Mercedes at All Out, and that pay per view was on Sunday. So apparently, on Collision that week, Hikaru Shida had a match against Deonna Purrazzo, and Alvarez. And I
Oh, she did. Hmm.
apparently, yeah, like full disclosure, I agree with Brian Alvarez on this one. But I do also recognize that Dave is technically right in that this is more common than it should be today. But Dave Meltzer also often makes the argument that like, well, they do it all the time, as though that's valid justification for doing something dumb. But I digress.
Yeah,
Alvarez is maintaining, and I agree with him because my whole thing is it's like it doesn't. So there's a couple reasons why this is a bad idea. One, if wrestling is real, which is how you have to view it when you're booking it, otherwise the show's going to be crap, Tony. You have to think about it as though if somebody in the UFC, for example, if somebody's going for a title, which UFC doesn't have events like this, but let's assume they did. If somebody's going for any title in the UFC, would you take a fight the night before? Like that's ridiculous. Why would you do such a thing? Win,
yeah, it
lose, or
wouldn't make
draw.
sense.
Win,
Yeah,
lose, or draw. It's
yeah,
setting you up to lose for. Now,
yeah.
I could see maybe a squash match, but then my mind goes to what's the point? Because again, freak accidents happen, and it's not even entertaining for the viewers because on a squash match,
Hmm.
you know who's going to win. But here's conversely, this is the wrestling side of it. When you
Yeah.
have a match like that, before Sheeta's going for the title, the only exception to this would be if you needed to book your way out of a predicament. Like, let's say that Sheeta had a freak accident or injury or medical condition, and you need to write her out. And I guess you want
Hmm.
to because, and I guess you want to instead of just saying, "Hey, Sheeta suffered an injury, she needs a replacement." Like, or maybe this is part of your storyline. Is okay. The storyline has to do with the fact that Purrazzo, like maybe you want to change it to a three-way. So you have a match with Sheeta and Purrazzo beats her. Logically, that would tell you it's like, well, Purrazzo should be in the match, but Sheeta won whatever contest she needed to get into said match, so then you can make it a three-way. Barring that, this makes zero sense. Just because why would you fight before a title fight?
Yeah, it just wouldn't make sense.
Just logically speaking. But Dave is maintaining he's like, they do it all the
Uh-huh.
time. And Alvarez is like, name me one time they've done it on SmackDown in the last year, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna go back and look, but I'll take your word for it. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't do something that stupid in WWE today. But I digress. They might do something on Raw, but that's a week before, and usually it's not gonna be a competitive singles match. It might be a tag.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Most likely, it's usually be like a tag to protect someone.
Yeah, yeah. So, but that made me start thinking because unfortunately, this is what I do. As I started thinking, I'm like, you know what? If you even because I'm not even going to go back to the territory days because I wasn't watching. Everything I know about the territories are stuff that I've read or heard or seen, decades removed. So I'm going to go back to
Yeah,
even when
same
I
here.
started watching wrestling. Well, I wasn't even alive during the bulk of the territories. So by the time I was born, Vince McMahon,
Same
I mean,
here.
by the time I was born, Vince McMahon had already pretty well taken it over. 1987, so I'm not sure what
Hmm.
territories were still around, but it was at the tail end, if not dead already. But even going back to the
Yeah,
ruthless aggression era, like again, compared to the territories, there are probably things that, well, I can tell you there were things WWE was doing that really didn't make much sense compared to, um, wow, I had the word and I lost it. What I'm trying to say is, even from the ruthless aggression era to today, there's a lot of stuff that's happening inside and outside of the ring that just doesn't make any sense. And
yeah.
it's because it's no longer wrestling's no longer treated seriously, even if like here's the thing. And everybody always kind of pokes fun at me when I
Hmm.
say this. It's like, listen, we know it's all I'm not going to say fake, but we know it's all scripted. We know it's all predetermined. But it's the same way I always, put it back to comedy. Like when you're doing comedy in a movie or stand up or whatever, it's only funny when you commit to the bit and you treat the bit as seriously as someone who it's actually happening to. Otherwise, because if you do the wink wink, you're in on the joke, it's very rare that that's actually funny. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Like Deadpool might be the exception, but even then, Ryan Reynolds
Yeah,
is
I was doing.
committing to the
Yeah, yeah.
bit.
He breaking the fourth wall. Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
he's still committing to the bit. And it's only funny when Deadpool
Mhm.
does it because Deadpool's the only one who's breaking the fourth wall. Everybody else is treating it seriously,
Exactly.
which is why, when you have one comedy wrestling character, it can work. I'm not going to say it hasn't worked before because it has. But when half your
Hmm.
roster is comedy,
Yeah, yeah. Or
it
some weird outdated gimmick or something. You know.
well, the problem is there's so many things that modern wrestling is doing, particularly AEW, and I'm only picking on AEW because they're the biggest stage that are doing this all the time. I mean, literally every episode of their TV show, somebody's doing it. Like, I'll argue this. If Orange Cassidy or Danhausen or Colt Cabana or the Bucks even nowadays are appearing on television, they're doing a comedy bit somehow, some way. Um, I'm trying to word this properly. So I guess what I'm really getting at is wrestling's not taken seriously anymore, even by the people creating it, and that's the problem. It's one thing for the audience to kind of be in on the joke, but if it's still treated seriously, we can all have fun, we can suspend our disbelief, and we can even share a laugh or two occasionally. But when the people writing the show, because let's be real, they're not booking, when the people writing the show are joking about it, it can't be good.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? When they're not taking it seriously, it can't be good. Oh, who was it? Who was it that said, yeah, this was so long ago. Like, it's just pro wrestling, man. That kind of thing. It's like, that's the problem. That's the problem. You're not, and you know what I think it is, honestly? I think it's people are afraid of being made fun of. I really do, because wrestling is still kind of looked down upon. Like, it's not,
It is. It's not like it's people don't take it serious. Yeah, yeah. It's like a joke. Oh, you still watch wrestling? You know?
yeah. And I always say, my favorite thing, though, is when people are like, well, you know, it's fake, right? I'm like, well, okay. Do you like, this is he's like, do you like the Mission Impossible? Or
And
I
you,
say the Fast and the Furious. You like the Fast and the Furious franchise? Yeah.
yeah.
I'm
Hmm.
like, I watched Vin Diesel lift up a car with one arm. That's not real. And wrestling
Hmm.
is more real than that. Because I'm sorry, John Cena actually did have to lift up Big Show, even though Big Show helped him. A 400 or 500 pound
It's
man
still required. Yeah,
still
yeah,
weighs 400 or 500 pounds. Like, that's still an
yeah.
incredible feat of strength that hardly anybody can do. The number of
Hmm.
human beings that can actually do that is few and far between.
Yeah,
But
I consider wrestling no different than I watching a movie. You know.
well, I consider it even more different, like more legitimate, because as so many people have said,
Hmm.
you know,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, because in a movie you get multiple takes, you have stuntmen, you have, crash mats, this, that, and the other. In wrestling, you get one shot, and if you screw up, the whole audience is gonna chant,
Exactly.
"You
Yeah.
fucked up,
Hmm.
you fucked up," or that's your best case scenario. Your worst case scenario is you
Yeah,
get
yeah, yeah,
injured
yeah.
or killed,
Hmm.
which has happened before. Now, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's a different animal from competitive combat sports. It is. I don't think anybody is actually gonna make the case that they're on the same level, but it's a different kind of
Hmm.
athleticism. It's a different kind of pain. It's a different kind of grind. But you have to present it as though they're the same. You know what I mean? Wrestling, in
Hmm.
my estimation, works best when you treat it like a fight league where the rules it's exactly what it sounds like they used to do, back in the day. You'd get an amateur wrestler, and the story would be this is how you would make somebody like Kurt Angle be able to lose in pro wrestling. It's like, well, he's an Olympic gold medalist and he's still in his prime. It's like, yeah, but the rules in pro wrestling are much more liberal. So people can punch and kick and, you know,
Yeah.
do dives and even outside of the no rules context matches, and that was the story. The story
Hmm.
was, oh, you're an amateur wrestler, cool. Come where the big boys play, where you don't have, all your protection and your rules keeping everything kosher, like because in an amateur
Uh
wrestling
huh.
match, you can't punch the guy in the face. If you could, you'd get pins a lot faster.
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
pins a lot faster if you could just punch a dude in the head or suplex him through glass, that's the difference. But then I started wondering, thought to myself, where did this start? And I think most people's first reaction is Vince McMahon, kind of pulling the curtain back. And to be fair, I think that has a lot to do with it. But I'm going to be honest with you. Well, I think it is Vince McMahon, but in a different way. Not so much pulling behind the curtain because I think it had already started by then. I think I blame the 80s. Just the cartoon character, just bullshit. The plumbers, the accountants, the turkeys.
Yeah, yeah.
To me, that's when I think most people were kind of like, you know, Fred, I'm starting to think this isn't legit. Either that or this man's a horrible accountant.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I would say even like in the late '90s, I would say there was still a lot of like not comedy wrestling, but like more gimmicks. It was like no one used their real name. It was always a character, and it was less like the real person.
Yeah, which especially in today's day and age, I really don't understand. I suppose, well, actually, I do. I take that back. I do. It's a very short-sighted decision that really paid off at the time, but it was detrimental to the
Mhm.
business long time because you were trying to appeal to the kids. That's what it was.
Yeah, 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 of course.
It's like a kid's not gonna resonate with Chad Gable necessarily. Some would, but
Yeah, uh-huh.
but Sergeant Slaughter, which that's not even too bad of one because it's not a stretch that a drill sergeant from the Marine
Yeah.
Corps would retire and then, join a wrestling league. So that's not even that bad of one. Somebody
Hmm.
like IRS, for example, great wrestler,
Hmm.
but really, I don't see too many accountants, being like, screw these numbers, I want to bust some skulls,
Yeah. To be honest, it took me quite a while to get used to like wrestlers having their real names or a name, any name,
Like a
other than a
normal sounding
character.
name.
It
Yeah,
took a while.
yeah.
It,
Um,
exactly.
my favorite wrestlers are and have always
I
been.
just thought that was always going to be.
Yeah, but my favorite wrestlers have and always will be um guys, and not even necessarily using their real name, although as long as it doesn't sound super goofy, I like it, is guys that
Yeah, uh-huh.
are basically themselves just amplified. Your guys like Rob Van Dam,
Yeah,
Tommy Dreamer, CM Punk,
yeah, yeah.
and even
Hmm.
the guys like Chad Gable. I liked Chad Gable the first time I saw him because I'm like, oh, okay, Olympic wrestler, yeah, Olympic
Yeah,
wrestler, legitimate, who is now just Shelton Benjamin's another really good example. Brock Lesnar, you know, nobody thought
yeah.
Brock Lesnar was bullshit. I mean, how could you?
Of course not.
I
No,
mean,
no. The first
how
day I
could
saw him, yeah.
you gonna tell him?
Yeah.
I'm not. And then even like there's a reason Stone Cold and The Rock were, and probably still to this day were, the greatest wrestling personalities of our time. It's because they were normal. They weren't, I mean, they
Yeah,
were kind of cartoon characters in the sense that they were just dialed up to 11, but they were essentially themselves
yeah.
just amplified. But that's what stars
Hmm.
do. Like, in any industry, that's what legitimate superstars do. Like, I've heard so many stories about Conor McGregor actually being like, he doesn't talk that much shit. He knows how to make money. Like, don't get me wrong, legitimate badass. But there were stories circulating about him and Floyd
Uh-huh.
Mayweather being like
Uh-huh.
friendly behind the scenes and being like, I'm about to go cut a promo. Watch this.
Yeah, I heard that too.
And that's what it
Yeah.
was. That's what it was. Now, I think the fight was legit,
Hmm.
but let's be real. These guys both knew what they were doing. They were making some money.
Yeah, they knew how to hype up the fight.
That's a skill in and of itself. I say oftentimes, whether it's other athletics or even politics, sometimes I actually say this about Donald Trump all the time. It's like Donald Trump learned from WWE because that man cuts promos all the time.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I see it so many times. I'm like,
Hmm.
they watched pro wrestling when they were younger, or still do. You can just tell, right?
Uh-huh.
But I don't know, man. There's so much. Like again, I keep picking on AEW, but it's just it all comes down. There's a lot of issues there, but it all comes
So
down to
easy.
what's that?
I said it's so easy to pick on them.
Well, like there's a lot of individual issues, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to them not taking the business seriously because, and if you want to get really
Oh, yeah, yeah,
nitpicky,
yeah.
if you want to get
Absolutely agree.
really,
Yeah.
I mean, because these are people that in the same match will, I mean, what was it? Jack Perry was literally set on fire, but he's fine. You know, was it Jack Perry? I think it was Jack Perry. Yeah. So, but it's funny. Jack
Had to
Perry's
be,
set
I
on.
think, because that's what Darby said he was going to do.
Well, I mean, before he was actually set on fire, like with the flamethrower.
Oh, okay, okay.
But so
Uh huh.
so Jack Perry legitimately gets set on fire, and then a few weeks later, he's threatened to be set on fire. It's like, did you forget you already did that? Like, don't get
Oh
me
yeah, yeah,
wrong,
yeah,
it couldn't have been fun,
yeah. hmm
but it's like AEW also seems to suffer from memory loss, like short term memory loss, because just the goofy shit constantly coming back
Yeah.
up. Um, and again,
Oh,
I'll
the
point to,
staple gun. Keep saying that.
God,
I hate the staple gun now. Like it was a cool bit between Swerve and Heyman, but it's overdone now. It's way
here's,
too much.
but here we are going back to not taking the business seriously. So here's the thing. As someone who has accidentally stapled his hand, right? It hurts.
Yeah.
But I'll
Uh
I'll
huh.
tell you I'll tell you right now, if I was in a legitimate fight, it wouldn't stop me. And if it's not going to stop me, it's certainly not going to stop Swerve Strickland.
Uh huh.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. If anything, it will
It's
piss me
overdone
off.
way too much. I saw
Well,
it
but
like in the last one.
it's also
Yeah. Yeah.
ineffective. It
hmm
doesn't work. It's not going to end a fight. It's just it's not. If you're fighting somebody who's legitimately tough, all they're going to do is get pissed off, take it from you, and then staple you 9 times out of 10. So it's not a good idea.
yeah.
It's just it's
Yeah.
in an actual fight. Don't bring a staple gun. Bring a stick. As Shadiversity would
yeah.
always say, never underestimate the power of a good stick. Like sticks are great. Sticks are the greatest weapons that you can ever get. They're they're plentiful. They're cheap. They're easy to use. You just
yeah.
lob somebody with one. You'll find out very quickly how effective a good stick is. But I digress. And then not just in the ring, because again, I don't like to comment too much on in-ring work, but I will comment on doing stupid shit just because I consider that booking. But speaking of booking, so I ask again, where's Tony Khan? Where's Tony Khan in his neck brace? I thought this was a
Oh
thing.
yeah.
They went out of their way to make
Yeah.
it a thing.
Yep.
And I told you guys they weren't going to commit to the bit because they're committing to the wrong part of the bit, and then it's going to disappear because Tony's going to realize too late that he looked like a dork, but it's going to be too late because at this point he should have seen it through if for no other
Or at
reason
least
for the
start
sake
of
of the
it. Yeah.
yeah, well, for no other reason for the sake of the storyline because again, you started it.
hmm
You started it and now it's nowhere and now you've got the Young Bucks making decisions, but then Tony makes decisions too. It doesn't make sense because anybody who's ever had a job understands that whoever signs your checks is the real boss. The Young Bucks cannot
Yeah.
fire you because Tony can override them. So what do they got? I'll believe that they can't be fired even though they absolutely can. But
hmm
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say they have a contract which doesn't exist anywhere. It's probably not even legal that says you can't be fired. Okay, you can be arrested. You can
uh-huh.
absolutely be arrested for assault and battery.
hmm
I mean, just call cops. Call building security. Tony can have them banned from the building any night he wants. This doesn't make any sense. And here's the thing though, and this is the problem, because it's not just the mentality of the wrestling business that's changed, and this is the biggest problem, it's the mentality of the wrestling fan. Because everybody says, "Oh, just stop thinking about it. It's just wrestling." That's why it sucks. That's why Rampage is getting viewership of 200, 300,000 viewers. When Punk was there, it was 500.
Yeah. hmm
It's just
Even
it's
that's
going
sad.
in Dynamite's down to six. Dynamite's down to 600s
Uh,
regularly. Actually, the if they get to seven, that's considered high now. I remember when a million was, like, all right, we're doing good. 900,000 was pretty well the standard. Then it went to eight, then it went to seven, then it went to
yeah,
six because the show's bad.
yeah.
And it sucks
So,
because they have
it's like,
so
oh.
many, they have so many. I haven't watched it in months. I don't care. And I've kind of made it a point. Like I want to be
Mhm.
good for the people that do watch this show, but at the same time, I kind of want to make a point to be like, no, Tony, give me something to give a shit about, and then I'll start watching again. This is going back to TNA in
Yeah,
2000.
exactly. Like you
It,
need more storylines. Yeah,
well, you don't even need more. You need good. I need something that I
yeah,
can get
that's true.
invested in. Um, I got hella invested in
Hmm.
Cody Rhodes. That happened overnight because there was already a story there,
Hmm.
and WWE took the story that was already there and molded it into their
Hmm.
creative. CM Punk, they took a story that was already there and they molded it in their creative. And now they're doing stuff with Drew McIntyre that, like, honestly shouldn't be entertaining, but it is
Hmm.
because they melded it into a story that was already there. Like, in a vacuum, the idea of Drew McIntyre tweeting during a match at WrestleMania is stupid, but it was hilarious because it made sense.
Yeah,
It
it
made
was.
sense in the context of the story. And he didn't do something stupid in the match so he could be able to go out. He laid Punk out and then wanted to rub it in because his character has been established that he doesn't so much want to beat Punk, he wants to humiliate Punk. It makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
It makes sense
it
based on
worked.
the character
Hmm.
and conflict that they've established. So you can do the fun stuff. It just has to make sense. I've said it before and I'll go back to it. You can have Orange Cassidy as the character that he is.
Hmm.
Here's the thing though. If he wins, it has to be rare and it has to be by accident or interference.
Yeah.
If he's your squash guy, fine. And you can do a storyline where he starts training and caring. All the I never like the fact that they say he doesn't care because okay, if I'm a wrestling promoter, if I'm a fight promoter, like if I'm Dana White, you think Dana White's going to give a guy matches and fights that doesn't care? No.
Hmm.
He's not even going to let him in the he wouldn't even consider that guy
Yeah, even when he turns it up to like act like a real wrestler, it still doesn't feel like it's legitimate. Like he goes
because
right back to like the little kicks
because
right
it's not
after.
because it's not. So here's the thing.
Hmm.
And my point is, and I'll illustrate this in a moment, you can make it make sense, but you have to make it make sense. Let's say you want Orange Cassidy exactly as he is. Like I said, he has to win few and far
Hmm.
between, and it generally speaking has to be an
Hmm.
accident or interference or somebody. Now, why is Orange Cassidy
Yeah.
here? Okay, you have to come up with a reason for him to be there that makes sense. So obviously, he's the son or cousin or nephew or whatever of one of the largest donors. You EC3 him, except EC3 was actually good.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
That's
Yeah,
all you
that
got
would
to
actually
do.
make really good sense.
That's all
Yeah.
you have to do. And then you can have your comedy bit and it can
Uh-huh.
actually be good. I'll do another example. Again, you can go back. I don't remember what episode it is. It was still back when Danhausen was a rumor, but it was pretty well said that he was coming to AEW. I said this. I said
Uh-huh.
Danhausen won't last because the gimmick works on the indies because you see it every once in a while and it's not a mainstay. It's not somebody you see every time you're there. It will
Yeah.
become so stale so fast in AEW unless, and I actually said this, I said this is how they could have made it work with Hook, right? So Danhausen makes his debut and annoys Hook for whatever reason. But then Danhausen
Hmm.
for some reason he likes Hook, he wants to help him out. So you have it where every couple of weeks Hook has a match, Danhausen comes out and curses the other person or oh hang on, let me think. No, I'm sorry, I got that mixed up. So you have it to where Danhausen and Hook get into a scuffle or something. So then Danhausen gets mad at Hook, and then
Hmm.
Danhausen every couple of weeks comes out. And keep in mind, at this point, Hook's matches kind of matter, but they don't really. By the way, this suggestion goes out the window if AEW still has the mantra of wins and losses matter. But they didn't at the time. They said it
Yeah.
did, but it really didn't. So Hook gets in his head and if I'm not advocating for this, I'm just saying that if you want Danhausen as he is, because I would have never hired Danhausen in the first place. But if you must have Danhausen the way he is, this is one of the many ways you can bring him in and make it make sense and
Uh-huh.
give him an actual storyline that would make sense. And here's what you do. So you basically have it to where they have a tussle backstage or whatever, and the Danhausen decides he doesn't like Hook. Like he says the chips are stupid or something. I don't know. So every time Hook has a match for a few weeks, and
Uh-huh.
it's not every week, it's every couple of weeks, Danhausen comes out and curses Hook, and it actually works. So even Danhausen's kind of like, oh, like, and this is how you can play into the audience, even being like, oh, it's pro wrestling, it's silly. Even
Uh-huh.
Danhausen doesn't think it's going to work, but it does. So now Danhausen starts to think, and nobody ever says it, right? That's the thing. It's all in the facial expressions. Danhausen
Mhm.
starts to believe he actually has powers. So he screws around with Hook, blah, 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 blah. And then Hook finally says, all right, I've
Yeah,
had
yeah.
enough. I've had enough. I'm tired of
Uh-huh.
losing. I want a match against Danhausen. Now, Danhausen, of course, takes the bait because he thinks he can actually curse Hook.
Uh-huh.
So, he keeps goading Hook and more and more and more. And then Hook's, finally like, fine, like, I don't just want a match. I want a no holds barred match. Blah blah. And Danhausen, of course, thinks he has powers now. So he's like, cool, whatever, blah 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 blah. Well, then match opens up at the pay per view, right? Danhausen goes to curse Hook, and Hook, oh,
Mhm.
he's cursed, and Danhausen comes up, gets a little bit closer, and then Hook just looks at him, stands up, nothing's happening. Hook's been faking the whole time just to get Danhausen in a position where he can beat the crap out of him and nobody can stop him.
Uh-huh. That
That's
would
it.
work. Yeah.
That's a couple months of television and a blow off at a pay per view. It elevates Hook. It
Hmm.
elevates Danhausen. It introduces him to the audience, and then you have to change his character because again, the gimmick don't work, and now you've shown it on screen that the gimmick don't work. And who gives a shit about the indies that played into it
Hmm.
before? That's just people being superstitious. If you're going to mention it
Yeah.
at all, which I wouldn't because screw them.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter. If you must explain it away, be like, oh yeah, those guys must believe in ghosts too, Like, but sorry, this is AEW. This is all elite wrestling. We don't play here.
That would work.
But that's just one example. And I'll keep going back to this well. Lucha Underground. Ridiculous premise. At every episode was a ridiculous premise. However,
Hmm.
they committed to the bit. They all played it straight, and it worked. Lucha Underground was a phenomenal show.
Yeah,
It
it was
made
must see TV.
it made sense in the universe that they set up.
Yeah.
It was all like it was out there. But
Hmm.
so I always go back to the whole storyline with Aerostar and Drago, right? They start out as rivals. They realize they like competing against
Hmm.
each other. Realize they make a good tag team. Drago gets hypnotized by Cobra Moon and becomes part of her little clique, and Aerostar has to save his friend. This is ridiculous. They're all wrestlers wearing masks that are reptilian themed, and somehow she has mind
Uh-huh.
control. And yet, because they committed to it, because they played it straight, because they did the work behind the scenes, because they did the angles and the interviews and the matches and all the build up, you wanted Aerostar to save his friend. Stupid as hell.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have
Yeah,
worked.
and they had different characters, everything. Yeah, but at least they knew you knew the characters. No, weekly.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, they did vignettes that showed you more about the characters, and then, oh my gosh, what happened on the
Hmm.
vignette last week actually mattered and came into play here. It's almost like
Uh-huh.
somebody made a story and stuck with it. Oh my god, this is the damnedest thing. You know? It's just I can't say enough. And like when they brought in Matanza. Matanza is under 5'8". I mean, I'm sorry, he's under 6 feet. He's not that big. But every week he squashed
Yeah.
people. So you believe and they said it was supernatural. Cool. As long as you play that out on screen, yeah, he's supernatural. He's a freak of nature. He shouldn't be that strong, but he is, and it worked. Except for when Brian Cage was taller than him. That okay,
Uh-huh.
that's one. That's one. You know? But
Yeah, like I never questioned any of the characters either.
not a one. Not a one.
Hmm.
And because when they did crazy stuff in the ring, first of all, it was people that could do it on command anytime, you know, and they did it when it mattered. And Helico only jumped off of a rooftop twice in 4 seasons. And both of them were in major matches that were blow offs for the season. And that first, oh my god,
Yeah,
I still watch that match at Ultima Lucha Uno
it was
when
one of the
he,
greatest. Yeah, it was
yeah,
amazing. I never seen no one else do it, just quite like him.
that was incredible. That was incredible.
Hmm.
It's, oh my god, it was insane. Is he still in AEW?
You rarely see him. I saw him like maybe last week, I think, on Rampage or something.
See, here's the thing. I always
It
liked
could have been
Angelico.
Dynamite. He was like in a tag team or something.
Hmm
Yeah, me
I
too.
always, I always liked him and Jack Evans. I liked them as a tag team. I liked Angelico as a wrestler. He was different. Like
Yeah.
I did.
Hmm.
You have a great performer. I don't know why they're not using him.
Yeah. I
And
have no idea.
he has a totally different style because he's a hybrid high flyer and a submission guy, and they explain it, which actually Lucha Underground started doing this. They explain it as it's a like a
Hmm.
Spanish submission style. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
that's novel.
yeah.
I've never heard of this before. It might not even be real, but I don't care
Hmm.
because they're playing it like it's real, and that's all that matters.
It was believable. Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Hmm.
believable because he's jumping off top ropes and then putting guys in like submission holds that I've never seen at the same time. It's
Hmm.
like I believe it, and that's all I need. That's all I need to see on the screen. Um, and then just talking about like
I don't
Cody
know why they're
Rhodes.
not using him. Maybe he's on ROH. I don't know.
Don't even get me started on ROH. I just
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I don't know, and it's gotten
So
so
much wasted
bad.
talent.
It's gotten so bad that like championships don't even matter anymore. I mean, let's
They
realistically,
don't.
how long was Swerve AEW World Champion? A few months, and
Maybe
in
like, yeah, 3 months maybe.
in that time, Will Ospreay was a bigger name, and Brian Danielson was a bigger name. Like I'm still
Yeah.
annoyed with how they just squandered Swerve's title run. It's like, why'd you even give him the belt? It doesn't. It doesn't
Hmm.
make any sense. It's and
Yeah,
plus,
it was a waste. Because like, oh, no, sorry, I was going to say, I don't even think he defended the belt that many times either. None that I can remember.
no, and when he did, it was against the same people. It's just like, well, and plus, this is AEW where everybody's got a belt. But guess what, everybody? Thanks to our friends at Trophy Smack, everybody really can have a belt. And the best part is, you can customize it to whatever you want, no matter how ridiculous it could possibly be. Your dream is their reality because at Trophy Smack they give you the highest quality custom belts, rings, trophies you could ever hope for. And the best part is, compared to other sites that do the same thing, they're extremely affordable and legit. This belt is every bit of 6 pounds. It is actually metal and leather. This isn't cheap plastic crap. I know you can't tell because you're not
Yeah, it's
holding
a
it, but
nice
I'm
looking
holding
belt.
it. But I'm holding it. And the thing is, they've got tons of color schemes and themes to choose from. You can even get, in some of their colors, alligator leather, which I knew I had to get for the podcast of
That's
the
real
year
nice.
award that I
Yeah.
won. Yeah, it's very nice. And look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that shine.
Uh-huh.
Look at that shine. And not just belts, custom rings and trophies as well. And in fact, if you've got a buddy that you want to give a nice little gag gift to, they have a loser section so you can get him a loser championship belt or trophy. Very popular among the fantasy footballers, I know. That seems to be
Yeah,
their
I would
their big
imagine. Yeah.
customer. But if you would like to get yourself a
Hmm.
custom belt just in time for the holidays, Use the second link in the description. It's first or second link in the description for our friends at Trophy Smack, and they will hook you up. Put these back, these beautiful bastards back. My plan was actually to hang them on the wall, but I didn't count on them being this heavy, so I have yet to find something that will actually hold them. It's become a problem.
Uh-huh.
So now they just kind of sit on the bookcase and I pull them down when I need to. But yeah, just going back to Swerve, I mean, if I were him, I'd be pissed. Because I'd have been going into Tony's office
Well,
basically every week.
I think he signed like a con another like 5 years or something.
I'd still be pissed. I'd
Yeah.
still be angry. I'd be like, I'm stuck here for another 5 years and this is the bullshit you're giving me?
Yeah.
Like, I left WWE because of this crap. And the thing is, Swerve is so good. It's not like they gave him the ball and he
Yeah.
dropped it. Swerve's been phenomenal. In fact, Swerve got. I'm not saying he was bad before, but Swerve got better as champion, and yet it seems like it just wasn't
Yeah.
recognized.
Yeah. Him and Nana, his manager. I like them both.
Again, I don't get Nana, but I mean, it's not so bad that I would be like fire
He's
him. I'd be
funny.
like, it's like
Yeah.
I don't. And managers are allowed to be funny. That's the thing because they're not in the. Well, they might be in the ring, but if they are, they're
Yeah.
taking bumps. As I said,
Exactly. Yeah.
Orange
He took
Cassidy should
maybe
be
a
a
few.
manager,
That's true. Yeah.
and then a match between Nana and Orange Cassidy would make total sense. I mean, even Paul Heyman would be Orange Cassidy in a real fight. I said it. I said it.
Yeah. He's the real tribal chief.
I feel like I saw somebody who made Heyman as a character, but basically gave him
Yeah,
like
that
God
was me.
mode. Oh, was it you? Oh, that's where I saw it. Like, oh God, that shit was funny. Don't get me wrong, I love
Yeah,
Paul Heyman, but even Paul Heyman would have found that funny.
yeah, yeah.
That was so funny. Yeah, that's right. You did do it. I think you sent it to me actually. That's why I'm remembering it. Oh gosh. But yeah, I don't know. What are some other examples of the wrestling mentality changing? I think we can all agree though that since Vince left
Oh,
Vince's
huh?
that since Vince got officially left WWE, I think everything got better, even the commentary. Because I was fairly recently, I talked about how I couldn't stand Corey Graves, but now I actually don't mind him because now when he's being a heel
Yeah, I don't mind him.
commentator,
No, not at all.
well, because now when he's being a heel commentator, he's not so constrained on what he can say. He can actually commit to the bit instead of sounding like a doofus. So apologies to Corey Graves because I blamed
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that's true.
Apparently, it was the higher ups. And when oh
Hmm.
gosh, Pat
Yeah,
McAfee
even
first,
Michael Cole.
yeah, Michael Cole's way better now. I can't believe it. Michael Cole's so much better now
Uh-huh.
than he was, so much less annoying. And then when Pat McAfee first started being on commentary, he was annoying to me, and now I like it because
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
Pat McAfee's character is that he gets up there, he doesn't care what anybody says, and he just says it. That works. That works for a color commentator. It works quite well. Jesse Ventura was the same way. You know, he would just get up there and say whatever he felt like saying because he's not afraid of any men. He faced a predator in South America. You know, I love Jesse Ventura. And I got nothing on
Yeah.
Karrion Cross. His impression. He's got him and oh god, the comedian. I forget his name. They both have way better Jesse
Oh, yeah.
Ventura.
Yeah. Yeah, he's back. I think he signed a Legends deal.
He did, yeah. I saw part of his
So,
interview he did with Chris Van Vliet, and he asked him about it before he signed, and he was like,
yeah.
Is there any way you'd go back to the company?" He's like, "I'm very close to actually, coming back," and that's Triple H.
Yeah.
That's every bit of Triple H because Triple
Hmm.
H and Triple H is a funny dude. We know this. We know this. Triple H is very funny. He's very entertaining, but he understands. that you have to play it all straight because otherwise, if you let people in on the joke and behind the curtain, they're gonna know it's fake. But he and CM Punk understand
Uh
that
huh.
if you play it all, and Punk is a master at this, where he gives you, and when he's cutting a promo, he gives you information that you know is legitimate, and then he spins it into his narrative. So then by the time it's done, you don't know what's real and what's not. And that is where it works. When you know the industry isn't
Yeah.
legitimate,
Mhm.
but there's enough realism to blur the lines, that's when wrestling is phenomenal.
Yeah, you fake. I mean, you forget. Yeah, you forget where you're watching. Anything is actually real, or
Yeah,
in that realm,
and then even
possibilities.
even when I go back, mentioned this so many times, but it's go back and watch it. The Shawn Michaels super kick to Shelton Benjamin looked like he killed him. As far as I could tell,
Oh yeah,
even though
yeah.
I know wrestling is scripted and predetermined, accidents can happen, and he looked like he killed him.
Hmm.
And according to Shelton, he didn't. He barely touched it. It's like
Yeah,
that's 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 pro wrestling right there.
he messed
Because
it with
I don't
skill.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I don't
to
know.
me it takes more effort to like not hit someone than to actually hit someone.
It takes way more effort to not hit
Yeah,
someone
yeah,
and
yeah.
make it look real.
Yeah,
Um,
look real.
there was another moment, and shoot, I'm having trouble remember. Oh, it was Jacob Fatu. When he did a dive on a table at a pay per view,
Uh huh.
and he was selling his knee. But here's the thing: after hearing Jim Cornette talk about it, I now understand, and I'm just like, oh, that was brilliant. It was when Roman came back. That's what it was. I forget what pay per view it was, but it was when Roman came back. The whole reason Jacob Fatu did that bit
Okay.
is because they had to have a legitimate reason that Jacob Fatu couldn't run in the ring and attack Roman after he attacked
Yeah,
Solo.
yeah. That's
But
what I'm
he
thinking. That's
but
thinking
he
kind of
did
ahead. Yeah,
that's thinking
yeah.
logically about it because if you're thinking logically about it, if Jacob Fatu is at ringside and Roman comes out and
Mhm,
Superman punches Solo, Jacob Fatu's going to run in the ring and attack him. It's
mhm,
it's just logical. Jacob Fatu doesn't run from a fight. So why would he not engage Roman for Solo? So you have to eliminate that possibility. How do you do that? Injury. You need him to lay out Cody Rhodes for the match. Cool. He's not going to just disappear. It's bloodline rules. There's no reason to. He can't be barred from ringside.
uh-huh.
So you weave it into the narrative so that it makes sense. But he did it so well. I thought he actually hurt his knee.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the plan was you're going to hurt your knee. I think the plan was okay, you're going to splash on the table and whatever hurt you the most, pretend like it's broken. So like if he'd landed on his shoulder, for example, he'd be like, "Oh, my shoulder," but he did hit that knee. That looked
Yeah,
like it
yeah,
hurt a
yeah.
lot.
I bet
And
it
then
did.
I'm
Listen,
gonna
even a little bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna mention a name that a lot of you probably forgot, and I don't think he got enough credit for this. Do you remember Marcus Corvon?
No,
Okay,
I really don't remember.
WWECW in the beginning, like part of the New Breed, with Elijah Burke, Kevin Thorne,
Hmm.
and he was the
Yes, yeah, yeah, yeah.
his finisher was the pounce, which this was more people selling it, but again,
Uh-huh,
I
uh-huh,
I loved how that looked in the ring because it looked
uh-huh.
absolutely devastating, absolutely devastating. And I was one of the people that actually liked Elijah Burke. I know he got a lot of grief and apparently
Oh, I did
deservedly
too.
so.
I did too.
I thought he was such a great heel,
Uh-huh.
and he's still wrestling, by the way.
Yep.
He's what's he going by now? Is he still D'Angelo Dinero or does he have another name? He's in NWA now.
Oh, he is? Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
he just left
I
the
think
business.
it's under a different name though. Or at least I think I saw him in
Uh-huh.
NWA at one point. Maybe he is out now. I'd have to look, but I know for a long time after WWE, he was
Hmm.
going by D'Angelo Dinero, and then he was the Pope briefly in TNA. Um,
Uh-huh.
but I always
Oh, okay,
enjoyed him.
okay. Yeah, 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 you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I always enjoyed him in ECW.
I did too.
I thought he was one of their best heels. I loved that whole New Breed ECW original storyline, even though I know a lot of people made
Mhm.
fun of it. But to me, that was logical. It was a logical storyline to happen. And I love their blow off match at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 23 is still one of my favorite ones, even though I know a lot of people don't like it. I loved WrestleMania 23. because once again, it was a story that made sense. It would make sense that a bunch of new guys coming in would want to either revere the ECW originals or get wins over them so that it helps their careers. And plus, Vince McMahon was
Uh-huh.
telling them to, and they wanted it all made sense. And that was even back in the Vince McMahon era where his henchmen were cheerleaders, so figure that out. I do miss the Spirit Squad. That was funny shit. You gotta
I
admit that
don't.
was. Oh come
I
on, you don't
never
miss the
liked
Spirit.
them.
You don't miss the Spirit Squad.
No,
I loved it. That was
no.
okay. So that's
Dolph.
probably something somebody will call me out on. I loved the Spirit Squad. I thought that was hilarious. But I guess okay. So here's my head headcanon, right? This is how I make it make sense. Vince
Mhm.
McMahon made them be cheerleaders. They weren't actually cheerleaders. Vince McMahon said, "You're gonna be my henchman." What? Because I like humiliating people. You're gonna be male cheerleaders, which is actually what happened. So it's just I make what actually
uh,
happened part of the story, you know. And then even when DX finally beat him, they put him in
I,
a box and shipped him back to OVW. Do you remember that?
oh
They had
yeah,
him
yeah,
stand.
yeah.
Yeah,
That was a good bit. Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
I remember.
hilarious.
Yeah.
That was funny. I'm sure it pissed Jim Cornette off, and honestly, rightfully so. Because let's see, you had Kenny Dykstra, who was actually good. You had Nick Nemeth, Nikki. Oh God, who's the other one? It was like Jim
Yeah.
Cornette always talked about him. Oh, I can't remember his name, and I
I
should. I
only
feel
knew
so bad.
Kenny and Dolph.
I mean,
Those are the only two I remember.
apparently they were all really good. I'm trying to remember the other one. I
Hmm.
can't. I'm not going to remember. But apparently he was like Jim Cornette, one of Jim Cornette's top baby faces, and he never really got his due because
Oh, okay.
I think the only time he was in WWE on TV was at part of the Spirit Squad. But yeah, I don't know. I really do,
Oh,
and
hmm.
I think it's available. I think you can go back and watch OVW during that time. Maybe not because no, I don't think you can because I'm pretty sure that Jim Cornette doesn't anymore. But I'm pretty sure Danny Davis still owns all that, which that's a shame because that would have been
Oh,
cool to be able to go back and watch all that. Maybe you can. I just don't know how. Because I kind of regret not being into OVW during that time
they
because it
should
seemed
have
like
it.
well, I mean, if Danny Davis has it, I mean he has it, but I don't know where you would be able to watch it. Maybe it is on. Maybe during that time, since it's technically WWE developmental, maybe it is on the network. I'd have to see. You in the comments
Hmm.
should let everyone know
I
if
would like to go
that's.
back and see.
Yeah, I do kind of regret because like even back when Punk was in OVW, that was after Jim Cornette left, but it was still WWE developmental. Like Punk was in OVW. A lot of guys were,
Hmm.
and girls were in OVW. John Cena. You can go back and watch old
Yeah, I
prototype
was
John
surprised.
Cena. Yeah, and you can go back and
Yeah,
watch
Batista.
Shelton Benjamin and Brock Lesnar when they were relatively the same size, which that's always very funny. Because Shelton Benjamin is bigger than they make him appear on TV. Because if you go back to old OVW days and he's standing next to Brock, like don't get me wrong, Brock's
Yeah.
bigger, but not by that much. But they always marketed Shelton as kind of like
Yeah.
a high flyer, so Shelton Benjamin is not a small man.
Hmm.
Kind of wish he'd
Oh,
go
he's
to
not even now, especially now.
yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, I kind of wish he would go to AEW. He's not. He's already said he wouldn't, but just because I wish he would go to WWE and
I
finally
thought he
get.
was.
Oh, maybe. Oh, wait, you're right.
I
I
thought it
remember.
was because of the Hurt Business. I thought Bobby was gonna go to AEW and they're gonna like reunite the Hurt Business a little bit. Him, Shelton,
And
and
oh, who was the other one? I know his name. I'm just blanking on it.
MVP,
There's another one. Oh gosh,
Cedric, but I
Cedric.
think he's still in WWE. I
Yeah, that might be
think he's
what they're
still in the
waiting for.
contract. Yeah.
I don't know, but yeah, that would be nice. I always it sucks because Shelton Benjamin should have been at least a one time, actually, he should have been a multi time WWE champion, but he never did. And I think that's a travesty. I think
Yeah.
that needs to be corrected. because I don't think
Yeah, I
there's
don't know
been
why they let him
very,
go.
and I was so stoked because I want to say it was 2018 he was gonna go to New Japan, but then he got it was either an injury or some kind of infection. I can't remember, but he ended up not being able to do. He had to postpone it, and then I guess this the deal passed up because I was very excited for that. Because
Mhm.
God, back in 2018 New Japan, we could have gotten some great matches. But I don't know. I'd like to see. I'd like. I think he could do really
Oh
good
yeah,
work in AEW. I think him and Danielson could do good stuff. He and Kenny could. He can wrestle anybody. So
yeah. I would like him and Swerve.
him and Swerve would have a great,
Yeah,
rivalry. Except I think he's gonna make Swerve look small. But
that's true.
yeah, just have him. Hey, I'll tell you what. This is what they need to do with Shelton. This is just for me. Have him have a feud with Jack Perry. Except their first and only match, he just slaps him and knocks him out. Can we please do this? Like, please. I'm just laughing so much
That'd
that
be worth it.
oh, so worth it. Might make me a fan of Jack Perry. It was like, wow, he can sell. But I'm still laughing though at how Punk is clearly living rent free in their heads still, and they're all jealous. They're all jealous that they kicked him out
Yeah,
and then he went to WWE and made even more money because CM Punk is a top guy
yeah.
and you are not. He tried to tell you.
I just don't get it. They had him and lost him. Hmm.
Well, what kills me is that Tony got him. The other guys clearly didn't want him, so they basically sabotaged it, and Tony let it happen. And like, especially in hindsight, Tony absolutely should have fired everybody else, but he didn't. Certainly should have fired Jack Perry because
Yeah,
how
yeah. I was
how
gonna say, especially Jack.
how's them. I can understand forgiveness being the prevailing emotion after Brawl Out. I get that. Jack Perry should have been fired.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
should have happened. He should have been fired before. I think I said this, but I'll say it again just for posterity, just in case I didn't. What Tony's react because Tony knew what was going on. Tony would have heard about this incident. So when Jack pulled that,
Hmm.
he's going to see Punk walking to Gorilla. He gets up and says, "Hey, Punk, I got this. Please go to your locker room. I'm going to handle this right now."
Uh-huh.
And then Punk probably be like, "Oh, really? What are you going to do?" And it's like, "I'm going to fucking fire him. That's what I'm going to do." you know? And I don't want this to escalate
Uh-huh.
because you've got a match. Your match is next. I don't need you getting, because I mean, I know you'd kill him. I don't need you getting blood on you before the match. It's like, I got this. I got this. And,
Yeah.
you know, say, like, okay. Punk goes back to his, locker room. Jack comes out. Jack, you're fired. Hook, good match. Like, except we all know that Tony had to approve the car being out there in the first place. Surely,
Yeah.
sure, there's no way, there's absolutely no way that Jack Perry could have just had a car brought out without prior authorization.
The
There's
only
no
way I would
way.
say if Tony was someone else was in charge and okayed it, that's the only way.
But we all know that nobody else is in charge because Tony
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah, I know. Mhm.
And even then, okay, so I'm just looking at all angles. Let's say you're right. Let's say that somebody else approved it. Tony sees the car on the monitor, says, "What the fuck's that car doing
Yeah,
there?"
yeah,
Oh, Jack's
yeah.
gonna get
Uh-huh.
thrown into the glass. No, he's not. That's way too close to the audience, and
Yeah,
that's real glass. That's glass flying everywhere. He is not. And the last thing I need is for
yeah.
that idiot to cut an artery by mistake and then bleed out live on television.
Hmm.
No, he's not. You
Yeah.
know,
I think Hook got cut. Yeah.
they both got cut because it was stupid.
Oh yeah, yeah, it was.
I did laugh at that though when he was like, "Real glass climbing a river," and then he got thrown through it and cut his back, and I'm like, that is why.
Yeah,
Punk
yeah. That's the reason why.
Punk tried to warn you. He tried to tell you not to do it because it was stupid, and it was in a pre-show match.
Yeah.
Main event for a title, maybe. Blow off from a major feud, maybe. I could be persuaded to authorize it then, but you're still gonna gimmick the
Hmm.
glass because it also didn't
Yeah.
look as good. It would have looked much better if he'd gone completely through it. Because fun fact,
Hmm.
kids, a real windshield doesn't shatter; it splits, and if it breaks, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't do that. It's like
Yeah. Yeah. This go to 1,000 pieces. It goes to the
yeah,
big chunks when it
yeah,
breaks. Yeah.
exactly. It's like it's fastened to paper, but whatever. So it didn't
Hmm.
even look as good, and it was very risky. So, I mean, yeah, Punk was right. It shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have happened. It made absolutely no sense. Why? Why was it there? Did Jack and Hook even have any build up to that match? I can't remember. I mean, it was a pre-show match, so I
I believe they
assume.
did, but it wasn't enough for that.
Oh, you
Yeah.
know what? Because didn't what
Yeah.
it was a match against Hook in that collision match, wasn't it? So maybe they had a thing going. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I stand corrected. Maybe,
It was. Yeah, but it wasn't like need for glass.
yeah, no, that's and again, pre-show match. Which first of all, if they had an angle going, if they had
Yeah.
if they had a storyline going, it shouldn't have been a pre-show match. But it was. We know it was.
Hmm.
Um, and then
Hmm.
did you see that All In is going to be in Texas next year, not Wembley?
Oh, they are. Oh.
Yeah. And I will say this because a lot of people are
I
like,
wonder why.
oh, numbers were that bad, huh? No, actually, because those events get planned well in advance. What happened was the first one, and this is to
Yeah.
AEW's credit. The first one went so well, Wembley had already signed up for the second one, but the first one did so well. I think it's Austin where they're going to have it, wherever in Texas, wherever Texas was like, Tony, we'd like to pay you a lot of money to have that show here in 2 years. And that's exactly what happened. So
Uh-huh.
credit where credit's due. The show
Uh-huh.
did well. And I think the second one did pretty good too. But
I believe
I,
so. I'm not sure which one. I think the first one was more,
yeah, well
but not
that
too
makes
sure.
sense. That would make sense, even if the second one was stupendous. Like I think it was the
Yeah.
first stadium show there in a very, very long time. So that just makes sense. Like the first
Yeah.
All In, they honestly couldn't have done. They
Hmm.
could have done no wrong because it was the novelty of them appearing there. Um,
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I think the thing is, like everybody talks about when AEW does well, it's like, they could have, oh, that's the greatest thing ever. It's like, yeah, unfortunately, could have been better. Maybe not Wembley, but every other show because I'm seeing a lot of empty seats. Seeing a lot of empty seats.
Yeah.
But
The last show wasn't bad. The last All Out show, I enjoy that way more than All In.
oh, really?
Um, that happened like yeah, way more. Except for the last match with Hangman and Swerve. They use like the staples again. They use some kind of needle, like an actual like hypodermic needle for some reason. It just was weird. Yeah, yeah.
So glad I didn't watch this. Oh,
That
I'm
part
so
threw me
glad.
off, but the rest of the car was pretty okay.
What was in the needle?
It was so weird. I have no idea. Like, I guess something to make him. It was like, cause they like Heyman took it out this like box or something and stuck it in his mouth like a dentist. And like
What was
it
it?
was like an actual real
Novocaine?
Yeah, yeah, or something like that. And
Why
then
would
like
you give somebody
uh
Novocaine in a fight?
it was some kind of numbing medication or something like
Give
that,
him a
and it knocked him
paralyzing
out.
Give him a
So
paralyzing
yeah, yeah,
agent,
some
you
yeah,
idiot.
it was just weird. It's like that.
Which I
Uh,
lo- I do love Jim Cornette's little bit about there's no such thing as a no rules match, and everybody's like, yes, there is. Like, no, there isn't. And I'll tell you why. Because if it was truly a no rules match, somebody just bring a fucking gun to the ring and kill the bastard.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it's kind of like,
yeah,
okay, so there are rules.
yeah.
That's honestly why no holds barred is a better term. than no rules
Yeah.
because honestly, yeah. And if it's a sanctioned fight, I'm pretty sure that even in a sanctioned fight, if you shot the guy, you'd still be arrested. But I mean, again, given the rules of the universe, I mean, that's a good point. Actually, I think there's a guy in Japan that did that gimmick. He brought a gun to the ring.
Just bring a stick.
Well, yeah, I mean, people bring sticks all the time. That would actually be that. You want to know how to win a last man standing match or an I
Mm.
quit match, not a last man standing match? Is bring a
Uh-huh.
realistic looking water gun to the ring. They make them and just pull it out and point it at him. It's like, say, I
Mhm.
quit, and then just squirt him in the face and be like, I win.
Yeah, that'd be a cool bit. But I don't know.
And you know
Maybe a bit
what's
of a
funny?
riot.
It would be hilarious. Yeah, there'd be a lot of people ducking for cover. But you know what? That would be risky. But you know what though? It would make sense, and it would be hilarious. It would be hilarious after the fact. It'd be scary as shit during. But could you imagine some dude just brings a gun out of his
Yeah.
trunk? So like
Didn't Brian Pillman did that or something? Didn't he
that was during
had
a
pull a
taped
gun?
that was during a taped
Yeah, I know it
interview
was
he
a
went to
tape.
Stone
Yeah,
Cold's house.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, you know what? I think that's what Jim was talking about. I was like, why didn't you bring it to the ring, you idiot?
yeah, yeah,
It's like out there you can be arrested. In the ring, it's no rules.
yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, that would have. My point is, at the end of the day, my point is, you can actually bring good wrestling back. You just have to start treating it seriously. And the NWA does that, but they
Yeah.
just don't have the budget. They don't have the reach. They don't have a budget. And frankly, the show was boring. I tried
Mhm.
so hard to watch NWA Power. It was boring.
I
Sorry, not
did too.
sorry. It was so boring. But there's
It was
hope.
too old school for me. Like,
Yeah, I'm not. I know there are people, and here's the thing, and this
yeah,
is the beautiful
yeah.
part. This is why my favorite period of wrestling is like 2014 to 2019, is because there was literally something for everybody out there,
Okay.
and then AEW came along and ruined it.
Hmm.
No, because if you liked that old stadium wrestling, NWA was your show.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't care for it, but I mean, again, not my cup of tea. If you liked Lucha Libre, Lucha Underground was legit. And then you could find AAA if you really, really wanted to. It was a little bit difficult, but you could.
Hmm.
New Japan had your strong style. Ring of Honor had your, wrestling purists that just care about matches.
Yeah.
WWE, NXT was good. The rest of WWE was kind of but I mean, it was tolerable if that was your thing. If you liked your sports entertainment, if you liked
Hmm.
good wrestling, you could watch NXT. Um,
NXT was so good. It had
NXT was
both good
so
wrestling
good.
and storylines. It was.
NXT
I
was
really
so
missed
good.
that.
So good back then. Yeah, I miss it too. That was probably peak wrestling for me. Like
Oh, it
that
was
that
absolutely.
period of time I was like this is legitimately the best
Yeah.
I've ever seen because there was so much fit around that if you
Hmm.
liked any kind of wrestling there was something that you would like on TV. At least one thing. At least
Yeah.
one thing that you wouldn't be able to not watch week to week because you just it was so good. Like that was when I was addicted to New Japan. I was like I will miss
Okay.
every WWE pay-per-view, but I will never miss a New Japan show. And I didn't for years. I
Hmm.
stayed up till 3 a.m. to watch Wrestle Kingdom live, and I had to work the next day. So
I
actually,
saw it a little bit, but I was like, it was too long. I was like, nah, I just can't take it.
well, this is before it was two nights. I forget what year was this. This would have
Yeah.
been, I think this was whichever number it was, 2018. I did. So I came
Hmm.
home, and keep in mind I was married at the time. So I came home after work at
Hmm.
about 6 o'clock. I went to sleep because I knew I was going to watch Wrestle Kingdom, and I knew I had to work the next day. So I
Uh-huh.
went to bed. I
Hmm.
took melatonin and went to bed. I woke up at like 2 and couldn't sleep anymore, so then I just got up and I watched Wrestle Kingdom, and it pretty well ended right on time. No, I think I'd watched everything but the last match, and then I came home after work and finished it just because
Hmm.
I had to go to work at 9 a.m. and it was a little over 3 hours. So
Yeah.
no, that
It's good
math is wrong.
times.
No, it was damn near like 4 hours or something. So maybe I did finish it. Now I can't remember. Anyway, the point is, I wasn't I wanted to watch it live so bad that I wasn't gonna miss it.
Mhm.
Well,
That's how I felt about NXT. I would never miss a takeover or anything.
oh, the takeovers, and this is when I
They were
discovered
so
that.
good. The takeovers.
Well, and that was back, which I think it's still this way. I think the takeovers are still on Hulu for free, but this is back when the takeovers were supposed to be exclusively to the WWE network, but Hulu aired them just as
Yeah,
episodes. That's actually how I
yeah,
discovered
yeah.
NXT is because I accidentally watched a takeover. It was like 2 hour show, and I'm thinking it's an hour, but it was so good, I
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
even realize it was 2 hours. And
Mhm.
then by the time NXT Takeover Fatal Four Way, by the way, great show from start to finish. It was phenomenal, and I still give credit every time because I didn't know who any of these people were. I knew who Tyson Kidd was because I'd seen him sparingly on WWE programming, but
Oh,
other than that,
yeah,
I didn't know who any of these
yeah.
people were, and yet I loved the show.
I think either.
It was it was so good.
I
The
think my first times was Sammy and KO. I was like, I didn't know who they were, but it was good.
See, I had seen Kevin Steen in passing, which by this time I was watching NXT. So when I had heard that
Uh-huh,
Kevin Steen had signed and he was coming to NXT, oh, his debut of was
uh-huh,
still one of my favorite matches ever because it was short, sweet, to the point, made sense. He came in there, he
uh-huh.
clobbered him. He clobbered him, which is what he should have done.
Yeah,
Cut himself on accident, but it worked.
yeah.
Yeah, I did think that was funny. That that wasn't a blade. That was just an accident.
Yeah,
But still great. Not,
yeah.
but again, nothing crazy happened in that match, and it was short. It was like not even 6 minutes. But one of my favorite matches because of the story that was being told. Got to get back to the stories, and they have to make sense.
Yeah, that's the main two things.
That's the
Good
main thing.
stories. And I would say multiple stories. Like I hate when they focus on only like one storyline. No, back in the Attitude Era, there was like multiple storylines, and they all was relatively good.
Well, and that's the see. That's
Sure,
how
you
you
got the
get.
main one that's your
Yeah, yeah,
no.
but that's how you get people to watch the
Mhm.
whole show because like I'm trying to think of an
Yeah,
example here. Like I'm not gonna lie, when Batista and John were feuding for the world heavyweight title, I didn't particularly care about that. But you know, there might have been something going
mhm.
on in the mid card that I really cared about. But I'm gonna watch the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
show
That's exactly what
because
I'm.
there's something there
Yeah,
for everybody. That's it's tricky.
hmm
That's got to be a bear to write for. It's got to be really difficult to book wrestling,
hmm
which is why not everybody can do it. Tony, I'm talking to you, Tony Khan,
especially
Booker
not
leaving my
alone.
hands. Yeah, especially not. Well, I don't know. The best booker. Well, no, that's not true because the best bookers did have a booking committee. So I guess that's. I don't think anybody did it alone. Alone, they would always at least have help, right? But I don't know. You got any other thoughts about the state of
Uh-huh.
wrestling? Oh, I forgot to tell people about our other sponsors. Other sponsor, singular. Do you like music? Would you like to learn more about the inner workings of the music industry? Well,
Oh yeah.
we have a podcast for you. It's called Leading the Band. It's where it's we have three musicians, all of which are active in the music industry in varying levels. You got Rachel Black, the lead singer of Elena, Virus Fox, the lead singer of Again and Forever, and Megstar, internet rapper sensation, who all peel the curtain back and let you in on the inner workings of how the music industry works. How you can, there's a lot of ways to make money in the industry that nobody really talks about because everybody thinks to be a success, you have to be at the top of the Billboard charts. And
Uh-huh.
that's just not true. That is not true at all. Of course, that's what they're
Yeah.
all
That's.
striving to do.
hmm
But for example, they all make money by
Yeah.
producing music for various things. And you can learn how to do that and be entertained at the same
Mhm.
time. So you can check out Leading the Band, first link in the description. And with that, you got any other thoughts on the how the mentality of wrestling has changed or You want to call it a
Not so
night.
much. It's just, yeah, yeah. That was pretty much everything. Just
Yeah, I mean,
other story,
I feel like a
and
broken
like something
record.
that mattered.
Yeah, I feel like a broken record for the past year because I just keep complaining about the same things because they don't change. In fact, they just get worse. But hopefully, WWE can
Yeah.
continue to influence everything. And yeah, just keep up the good work for those of you doing it, and for those of you not AEW, shape up. You can do it. You've got everything you need to. I just can't believe how
Oh yeah,
long they've
yeah.
been. I just can't believe how long they've been going with the same crap, and it's demonstrably failing. And it's like, I get it. It doesn't really matter if you make
They have
money.
so many good minds over there too.
Yeah, but it's like you're not listening to
Hmm.
anybody, so it's whatever. But apparently at
Hmm.
AEW,
That's the
you're not
point.
even required to come to work because I think there was some media scrum. I can't remember what it was, but Tony Khan was like giving credit to Jimmy Jacobs for having perfect attendance. And I'm like, wait, you mean like your writing staff isn't at all the shows twice a week? You have to be there
Uh-huh.
twice a week, and there are people that
Twice.
aren't that really. And he's like, yeah, Jimmy's there every week, so he lets people know what's going on. I'm like, they're not even watching if they're not there. You're not even watching the television. I think we might have identified the problem, but I don't know. Clearly
They
a
actually don't know
leadership
what's going
problem.
on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like no wonder it doesn't make any sense because they didn't know what happened the previous week. That might be a
Yeah.
problem. Say what you will about Vince McMahon, but at least when he was in charge, everybody was there at every show. You know, all the writers, everybody involved, everybody knew
Uh,
what was going on. True, he would change shit before the
yeah, I
show,
couldn't
but
imagine the stuff what Tony does, Vince would do.
oh, I would not like to be there. And we're hearing a lot of stuff that we heard about WCW too is like I'm hearing more and more reports. I cannot wait for the books to come out in like 10, 15, 20 years. It's going to be very illuminating. Brawl out
Oh
the
yeah,
death
and
of AEW.
one last thing. What's this guy? Vince's son was
Shane,
there, so who knows? Maybe things will be look for the better. Yeah, Shane.
I can't see Shane
Maybe
McMahon.
things will get better.
I can't see Shane McMahon being involved with AEW. Why would he? I just not.
Yeah, it's still money. Who knows?
I mean, but he doesn't. Does he need money?
Mhm.
I mean, he might now because all his inheritance is going to lawyers. But no, so maybe,
Sure.
maybe Vince is spending
Who
all the
knows?
inheritance
Maybe
money.
it's Vince, and like,
Actually, Tony should really be careful because you allegedly are a WCW fan. You know how that went down. He sent Shane first.
yeah, yeah,
Just see
yeah.
that Vince
So I
McMahon is
brought that too.
all elite.
I'm waiting for it.
He's gonna make Dustin be Gold Dust again.
No, 7.
Oh.
That was even worse.
Oh gosh. Well, with that, that is what's wrong with wrestling today. Hopefully it gets better. Like here's another example. Like this gentleman, remember this guy? Remember when this guy was
Switchblade?
actually
Yeah, yeah.
somebody you would actually
I
see on
remember
TV?
him.
Yeah, he's not Switchblade no more. I knew it. I called it. I said, "Oh, Jay, no." And
Nope, nope. He's not even with the what was it? The gun club? He's not even in that no more.
I tried
Juice
to
took
tell
his
him.
place.
I tried to tell him.
Yeah,
I told him he should have stayed in New Japan, but if you're gonna leave, go to WWE. But I
yeah.
digress. Well, thank you everybody for enjoying this episode of Down
Mhm.
the Middle. Thanks for hanging out with us for a little while. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Don't forget about our wrestling autographs. You can check out that info in the previous episode. Maybe next
Yeah.
time I'll reintroduce it. Um, but yeah, we'll see you guys again in 2 weeks where we will have a topic and I will have watched some wrestling, I promise. Some wrestling, just not AEW.
Cool, cool.